Hello, this is Jackie M. How are you? Guys, thanks so much for joining me. This is the first time I've actually done a video challenge like this. If you know me, you will know that my thing is doing live videos, live cooking videos. But about a few years ago, I actually did my own challenge, which was 30 days, 30 Asian ingredients. I don't know if you remember that, but that was posted on YouTube. But I pulled down some of them because the quality wasn't that great. But anyway, I got motivated to do this. Is it Go Live 30? 30-day challenge. Sorry, that's being run by Paul Gray, and I figured this will be a good opportunity for me to actually be consistently producing live videos over the next 30 days. And I've decided on the topic, which is 30 days, 30 Malaysian cooking tips. Okay, I tried to play around with the title, but I didn't want to make it too too clickbaity. I was going to call it Malaysian cooking secrets or Malaysian insider secrets and all that sort of stuff. But I decided just to call it Malaysian cooking tips. And by the way, if you're watching, please say hello. Hey, Paul. Just say hello and let me know where you're watching from. All right. I try and tell everyone, if you just happen to have caught this particular video elsewhere, your best bet, if you don't want to miss all of them, is to go to my Facebook group. This is a free Facebook group. It's called Jackie M's Malaysian Street Food Kitchen. I only set it up a few weeks ago now, but that's where all my live content goes. Okay, so you get confused about where to find me and all that sort of stuff. Your best bet is my Jackie M's Malaysian Street Food Kitchen, and you can find that if you want to type in the full URL. It's just facebook.com/groups/Malaysian street food. Hey, Nora, how you doing? Hey, everyone. All right. So if you're watching this and it says at the top, StreamYard needs access to whatever to see who you are, just click on that. That way it allows me from my end to see the comments showing next to your name as opposed to just saying anonymous Facebook user, just how StreamYard works because of all this security stuff. All right. So what is 30 days, 30 Malaysian cooking tips? It's basically kind of like my own collection of tips around how I approach cooking. Okay. These are the same tips, techniques, and stuff that I use for my own cooking. And first of all, if you don't know who the hell I am, obviously I'm Jackie M, and I've been producing and selling Malaysian food in Sydney, Australia for over 2 decades now. Okay, so I've had my own restaurants, and you will have seen me everywhere on YouTube, on television, online and all that for my food blog and all that. But the one thing I want to mention just right off the bat, because this is the first session ever, and I'm not going to ramble like this, hopefully, for the following 29 days, but I just want to kind of like give you some context a little bit. But my food is constantly evolving, right? So I need you to appreciate that. If you saw something that I did online on a YouTube video 5 years ago, there's a very, very strong chance that the way I do it nowadays may have differed substantially by now, okay? Because I'm always learning new things, and that's the other thing that a lot of us chefs, and by the way, I'm part of the Masters of Malaysian Cuisine group of chefs, which is a collection of 8 chefs who are at the top of their game. All right, they're kind of like the who's who of Malaysian cooking globally. So we're always actually learning. We're always kind of like changing things around. So what I tell you now, a lot of it is new stuff. Some of it's old stuff. And I have to be completely honest, as someone who's so like, entrenched in the whole food scene and all that, some of it actually seems really boring to me, but because I've been doing it for so long. But I'm constantly surprised at the number of people every time I do my live cooking videos who have never come across the kind of, tips, that I kind of throw in the process of cooking sort of thing. So I hope at least that you will find some useful information over the next 30 days from what I'm teaching you, okay? So a lot of these techniques, these tips are stuff that I actually teach my coaching students. I've got a small online coaching community that I've just started up. It's, if you can check out the details at walkaroundasia.com. But so anyway, that's the kind of like context I want to put it in. And finally, the other thing I want to mention as well, I know that a lot of people, especially people who follow me, are Malaysians themselves, who get a lot of overseas overseas Malaysians, and we're all passionate about Malaysian food. And one thing I did learn when I came to Australia when I was 17 years old was I had a particular idea of what Malaysian food was based on where I grew up in Malaysia, right? And based on my favorite like stalls and all that. And then when I came to Australia, and at some point I decided to make it my mission to learn all my favorite Malaysian hawker food that I grew up loving. I had to do a lot of research myself because my specialty is Malaysian street food, hawker food, because that's my own parents' background as well. My parents used to be hawkers back in Malaysia way back when, right? It's very hard to learn hawker recipes because people keep what they know very close to, they're kind of like trade secrets, because they don't want to be blogging their recipes and giving them away, because next thing you know, people will be opening up rival stores next to them. All right, so I had to learn things the hard way, the long way. But what I did find out over the years in the process of trying to research everything and all that was that there were a lot of different variations to my favorite hawker dishes. Okay, that's something in my, hey Liam, how you doing? You might find that is, I basically am couching this because I want you to kind of like have an open mind in terms of what I teach you. Okay, so what I bring to the game is, again, like I said, my experience running a Malaysian food business here for decades. But having said that, a lot of what I teach and what I implement in my cooking and what I'm going to share with you over the next 30 days is couched around like my own background, right? Growing up in Seremban, which is down the southern part of Malaysia, the Malaysian Peninsula, and also couched around the time that I grew up in, and also couched around my current environment, which is Australia, Sydney specifically. So some of the things that I do may be a little bit unusual to you. You'll be like, why doesn't she use that instead? Why does she, why is she using all these shortcuts that seem really like blasphemous to to people who are really like traditional cooks? Okay, so keep an open mind. But yeah, so having said that, let's cover tip number 1 today. Okay, now because I ran a Malaysian food business, and if anyone's ever run a Malaysian food business in Australia, you're going to find that staffing is a problem. And that was how I really kind of spent a lot of time and a lot of ways to be able to cut down my cooking time, all right? Because invariably I was the bottleneck. I was the one in the kitchen who could do all the stuff that I wanted to do, but I didn't have enough time to do it because, because it was just so incredibly diverse, the kind of stuff that I did. And also I didn't have trained staff, right? So a lot of my staff in the kitchen were actually Malaysian overseas students. And if you know anything about overseas students, they don't generally arrive in Australia knowing how to flip roti canai or knowing how to cook a perfect char kway teow and all that, right? So they were doing the more basic stuff, and I was doing all the labor intensive stuff. Okay, so ultimately what I had to do was just I needed to rationalize my time, and one of them that was the most time consuming was frying onion, the rempah. Okay, so typically if you're cooking a Malaysian curry, the rempah would consist of like onion or shallots that's been blended to a paste along with other ingredients. So there's like the dried chilies you soak, you're gonna blend, got the garlic and all that, and then it turns into this big mushy oniony mixture that you're gonna fry, and you spend hours and hours frying. And I used to have this brat pan that's 80-liter capacity, and I would have a pizza shovel, and I would just stand over it and just fry it, okay? And then you'd get like this huge amount of like onion that's all browned, and then I put them into these drums, and they will last me a week, and next week is all over again. So before you even get to the point of frying the onion, you had to obviously peel the onions. So I would buy big bags of onion, like 20-kilo bags. You spend a lot of time peeling, chopping, processing them to a mince, right, to a fine paste, and then you spend hours and hours just frying and frying and frying. Okay, so that's the context that I want to kind of like have you think about. Okay, so what I ended up doing, because it was so incredibly time consuming, was that I subsequently, especially when I was really time poor, I figured, look, instead of doing all of that, right, why don't I replace the onion with commercially produced fried onion, right? And that's what I did, and that's actually something that I've implemented a lot in my cooking ever since. Okay, is it perfect? No. Okay, so I'll give you an example of commercially produced fried onion or fried shallots. Okay, and I'll talk about the difference in a little bit. So here's a packet of fried shallots. Okay, I'm not actually being paid. Every time, by the way, every time you see me hold up anything, I'm not getting paid by anyone to talk about their products, okay? But fried shallots, okay, here's a pack of commercially produced fried shallots, and you would know, you should be able to find this fairly easily at Asian grocery stores, at least. Certainly here in Australia, you can even find them at Woolies, okay, at supermarkets. And ironically, you can find them at IKEA, because apparently the Swedes like their fried shallots as well. So you kind of figure, okay, it kind of makes sense, because you're spending hours and hours frying these onions or shallots, right? Why not have something that's already pre-fried? So that's what I do. Okay, so that's tip number one. And the other thing I want to mention, you notice I mentioned shallots versus onions. Okay, in Australia, when I came to Australia, in Malaysia, okay, first of all, when we do the rempah, a lot of time we use the small red onion, okay, the small shallots. In Australia, when I arrived like years and years ago, you couldn't actually get them, and even subsequently, when you could get them, they were very, very expensive. Okay, so but what we do have are brown onions, which are these big giant ones, and they're cheap. You know, you can get them for as little as $1 a kilo sometimes. So those brown onions, they're very juicy. Okay, so because they're juicy, it means there's a lot of liquid in them, and that's kind of like I think par for the course for most varieties of onions. They have a lot of juice in them. So if you go and replace your onion mixture with what's labeled as fried onion as opposed to fried shallots, you will read, if you look at the ingredients list, that they will contain onion, oil, and also cornstarch. Okay, and cornstarch, I'm guessing, like, again, I don't know anyone who actually works in one of these factories. I'm guessing the cornstarch is there to soak up some of the juices, okay, to just kind of like make it easier for them to be able to roast or fry them. Shallots then, okay, so if you look at a pack of fried shallots, if you read the ingredients list, it will just say oil and shallots, okay? And that's why I use shallots a lot of the time, because if you can imagine, if you reconstitute like some fried onion, commercially produced fried onion, if it's got cornstarch in it, it's going to turn kind of like starchy. Okay, so if you can imagine me substituting fresh onion with that in a curry and it's starchy, it turns your curry starchy. Okay, unless you're very, very kind of like restrained in how much you use it. And sometimes I do use fried onion. Sometimes, yeah, shallots are not always available, so I use fried onion instead. And I just have to scale back on how much I use, because I don't want my curry to turn into some starchy, nasty mix. Okay, so look for fried shallots if you have to. Is it perfect? Like I said, no. You know, fresh is always best, and I always try and remind people fresh is always best. But this is one hack that you can actually. Hey, Guts, how you doing? Good Abend. So this is one hack that, like I said, I've applied in my cooking, and which I actually still use some of the time. Okay, when I cook for myself at home, do I do that? No, because I like fresh. Okay, but when I've got like when I'm very time poor and I've got like 100 mouths to feed at a pop-up event or something like that, and I need to whip up like a fried sambal belacan, you know what? I use this. Okay, instead of frying a big wok of onion from start to finish to produce sambal belacan, I just use this, throw it in, add a bit of water to basically reconstitute it, and then I'll fry it up with some oil for like 5 minutes and everything else in that, and there you go. That's a sambal belacan, commercially produced. It's decent enough to be served with whatever food that they're eating, right? So there you go. Give it a shot and let me know what you think. Hey, Craig, how you doing? When are you coming over again? Okay, so there you go, guys. That's my tip number one for kind of like 30 days of Asian, Malaysian cooking tips. And I hope you find it useful. Like I said, not everything is going to be something that works for you, but as someone who owns a Malaysian food business and has done so for the last, over 2 decades here in Australia, this is the sort of stuff that I use. Okay, so keep an eye out for all my subsequent live videos. I'm going to try and be consistent in terms of the time slot, 5 p.m. Sydney time, which is right now. May not always work out, because if you know me, I've got Noah, who's my child, who's special needs, but I will aim for this particular time slot. But I definitely intend to go live for 30 days here on Facebook. And again, if you're just joining me and you don't know where to look me up, your best bet, if you want to catch all these live videos, is in my Facebook group, Jackie M's Malaysian Street Food Kitchen. All right, guys, thanks again, and I will see you tomorrow at the same time. All right, ciao.